I've earned 30 plus certifications, and I'm here to guide you to success on your exam. Welcome to the Ultimate MB-820 Exam Masterclass. Are you ready to crack the MB-820 exam in one go? You're in the right place. In this session, we'll arm you with powerful insights and hand-picked questions that can make all the difference in your exam performance. We've scanned the web using intelligent crawlers to gather the most critical and high-impact questions, all compiled into one powerful PDF resource. You can download it from the link in the description. Not only will we explore these must-practice questions, but we'll also share real exam experiences and pro tips to give you that competitive edge. Let's dive into the key questions that could shape your success. Question 1. A company is deploying Business Central on-premises. The company plans to use a single-tenant deployment architecture. You need to describe how the data is stored and how the Business Central server is configured. In which two ways should you describe the single-tenant architecture? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. A. Each customer has their own Business Central server. B. The application and the business data are stored in the same database. C. Multiple customers share a single Business Central server. D. The application and business data are stored in separate databases. E. Multiple customers share multiple Business Central server instances. Correct answer A and B. Each customer has their own Business Central server. The application and the business data are stored in the same database. Explanation: in a single-tenant setup, each customer gets a dedicated Business Central server, ensuring isolation. Both application and business data stay together in one database, simplifying management. Question 2. You are cleaning up sandbox environments for a company. The company requires data to be cleared from the environments each time an extension is published. You need to configure the launch.json file. Which schema update mode property should you set? A. Force upgrade. B. Force sync. C. Synchronize. D. Recreate. Correct answer: laughing face. Recreate. Explanation: the recreate mode wipes the environment and recreates all objects, clearing data fully. This ensures a clean state whenever extensions are published. Question 3. You need to allow debugging in an extension to view the source code. In which file should you specify the value of the allow debugging property? A. Settings.json. B. rad.json. C. app.json. D. launch.json. Correct answer C. app.json. Explanation: the app.json file controls extension-level configuration, including debugging behavior. Setting allow debugging here enables source-level debugging for the extension. Question 4. A company uses Business Central. The company plans to use a translation file in an extension. The extension has a caption that should not be translated. You need to prevent the caption from being translated. What should you do? A. Use the caption MO property and copy the same caption for each language used. B. Set the generate lock translations feature in the app.json file. C. Add the locked equals true parameter to the caption. D. Delete the caption property. E. Copy the same caption for each language in the translation file. Correct answer C. Explanation: the locked equals true setting tells Business Central not to translate the caption. It ensures the caption remains exactly as defined in the extension. Question 5. A company plans to set up a local Business Central development Docker container. The environment will be used for testing new project ideas. You need to ensure that the most recent Business Central artifact URL has been selected. Which command should you use? A. Get BC artifact URL type sandbox select current. B. Get BC artifact URL type sandbox, select closest. C. Get BC artifact URL type sandbox, select next minor. D. Get BC artifact URL type sandbox, select next major. Correct answer B. Get BC artifact URL type sandbox, select closest. Explanation. The closest option returns the latest available artifact for the specified version family. This ensures the container uses the newest compatible Business Central build. Question 6. You need to implement a solution that automatically processes incoming messages from Azure Event Hubs and stores processed output in Azure Data Lake Storage. Which Azure service should you use? A. Azure Functions. B. Azure Stream Analytics. C. Azure Batch. D. Azure Logic Apps. Correct answer B. Azure Stream Analytics. Explanation. Stream Analytics provides real-time processing for Event Hub's data, enabling immediate transformations and output directly into Azure Data Lake Storage efficiently. Question 7. Which Azure service should you use to centrally manage secrets, encryption keys, and certificates? A. Azure Security Center. B. Azure Key Vault. C. Azure Sentinel. D. Azure Policy. Correct answer B. Azure Key Vault. Explanation. Azure Key Vault securely stores secrets, keys, and certificates in a central location, providing strong access control and simplified security management across applications. Question 8. You need a globally distributed NoSQL database that offers low-latency access and multi-region write capability. Which Azure service should you choose? A. Azure SQL Database. B. Azure Cosmos DB. C. Azure Database for PostgreSQL. D. Azure Synapse Analytics. Correct answer B. Azure Cosmos DB. Explanation. Cosmos DB offers multi-region writes, extremely low-latency responses, and global distribution, making it ideal for scalable, high-performance NoSQL applications worldwide. Question 9. Which Azure storage option should you use for storing unstructured data such as images, videos, and documents? A. Azure Blob Storage. B. Azure Table Storage. C. Azure Queue Storage. D. Azure Disk Storage. Correct answer A. Azure Blob Storage. Explanation. Blob storage is optimized for large amounts of unstructured data, supporting media files, backups, and documents with scalable capacity and strong durability guarantees. Question 10. You need to ensure that only specific users and services can access an Azure storage account. Which feature should you configure? A. Azure Firewall. B. Access Keys. C. Shared Access Signatures SAS. D. Network Security Groups. Correct answer C. Shared Access Signatures SAS. Explanation. SAS tokens let you grant controlled, time-limited access to storage resources without revealing full account keys, improving security and access management flexibility. Question 11. You need to schedule automated data transformations that run on a time-based schedule. Which Azure service should you use? A. Azure Logic Apps. B. Azure Functions. C. Azure Data Factory. D. Azure Databricks. Correct answer C. Azure Data Factory. Explanation. Data Factory enables scheduled data movement and transformation pipelines, providing automated orchestration for ETL workflows across diverse cloud and on-premises sources. Question 12. Which Azure service allows you to run containerized applications without managing servers? A. Azure Virtual Machines. B. Azure Container Instances. C. Azure Batch. D. Azure Functions. Correct answer B. Azure Container Instances. Explanation. Azure Container Instances provide fast, serverless container deployment, eliminating infrastructure management, while supporting isolated, secure execution for containerized workloads efficiently. Question 13. You need to store relational data with support for automatic backups and high availability. Which service should you choose? A. Azure Cosmos DB. B. Azure SQL Database. C. Azure Table Storage. D. Azure Blob Storage. Correct answer B. Azure SQL Database. Explanation. Azure SQL Database offers managed relational storage with automated backups, scalability, and built-in high availability, removing administrative overhead and improving reliability. Question 14. Which Azure service provides a fully managed Spark environment for big data analytics? A. Azure Databricks. B. Azure Synapse SQL. C. Azure Stream Analytics. D. Azure HD Insight. Correct answer A. Azure Databricks. Explanation. Azure Databricks delivers a fast, collaborative, managed Spark platform that simplifies large-scale analytics, machine learning, and high-performance data engineering tasks effectively. Question 15. You need to monitor the performance of your Azure resources and receive alerts. Which service should you use? A. Azure Policy. B. Azure Monitor. C. Azure Security Center. D. Azure Sentinel. Correct answer B. Azure Monitor. Explanation. Azure Monitor collects metrics, logs, and telemetry from resources, enabling real-time performance insights and proactive alerting to maintain system health effectively. Question 16. Which Azure service provides centralized security posture management and threat protection? A. Azure Policy. B. Azure Security Center. C. Azure Firewall. D. Azure Bastion. Correct answer B. Azure Security Center. Explanation. Security Center delivers unified security management, threat protection, and recommendations across Azure resources, helping improve overall cloud security posture continuously and efficiently. Question 17. Which service should you use to enforce organizational rules and ensure compliant resource configurations? A. Azure Sentinel. B. Azure Policy. C. Azure Monitor. D. Azure Advisor. Correct answer B. Azure Policy. Explanation. Azure Policy enforces organizational standards automatically, ensuring resource configurations remain compliant, consistent, and aligned with governance requirements across environments efficiently. Question 18. You want to ingest streaming data from IoT devices. Which Azure service is most appropriate? A. Azure Event Grid. B. Azure Event Hubs. C. Azure SQL Database. D. Azure Virtual Network. Correct answer B. Azure Event Hubs. Explanation. Event Hubs handles massive real-time data ingestion from devices and applications, providing scalable streaming capabilities for analytics and event processing pipelines. Question 19. Which Azure storage tier is best for frequently accessed data? A. Cool tier. B. Archive tier. C. Hot tier. D. Premium block tier. Correct answer C. Hot tier. Explanation. The hot tier optimizes Azure storage for frequent access scenarios, delivering lower latency and faster retrieval compared to cool or archive tiers. Question 20. You need to securely connect your on-premises network to Azure. Which solution should you use? A. Azure Front Door. B. Azure VPN Gateway. C. Azure DNS. D. Azure Key Vault. Correct answer B. Azure VPN Gateway. Explanation. Azure VPN Gateway establishes encrypted connections between on-premises networks and Azure, enabling secure hybrid connectivity for workloads and enterprise communication. Question 21. Which service allows you to host a fully managed Kubernetes cluster? A. Azure App Service. B. Azure Functions. C. Azure Kubernetes Service AKS. D. Azure Virtual Machines. Correct answer C. Azure Kubernetes Service AKS. Explanation. AKS simplifies Kubernetes deployment and management, providing automated updates, scaling, and orchestration for containerized applications within a managed environment. Question 22. Which Azure service manages distributed caching for improving application performance? A. Azure Cache for Redis. B. Azure Blob Storage. C. Azure SQL Database. D. Azure Event Hubs. Correct answer A. Azure Cache for Redis. Explanation. Azure Cache for Redis delivers high-speed, in-memory caching to accelerate application performance by reducing database load and improving data retrieval times. Question 23. You need a serverless workflow tool that integrates multiple Azure services. Which service should you use? A. Azure Logic Apps. B. Azure Functions. C. Azure Batch. D. Azure Automation. Correct answer A. Azure Logic Apps. Explanation. Logic Apps orchestrate automated workflows across services using connectors, enabling serverless integration and simplifying complex business process automation with minimal coding. Question 24. Which Azure Compute Service is best for running traditional virtualization workloads? A. Azure Functions. B. Azure Container Apps. C. Azure Virtual Machines. D. Azure Kubernetes Service. Correct answer C. Azure Virtual Machines. Explanation. Azure Virtual Machines support customizable virtualization for legacy applications, providing full control over operating systems, configurations, and compute resources in the cloud. Question 25. Which Azure service provides enterprise-grade identity and access management? A. Azure Firewall. B. Azure Active Directory Entra ID. C. Azure DevOps. D. Azure Key Vault. Correct answer B. Azure Active Directory Entra ID. Explanation. Azure Active Directory manages authentication, single sign-on, and access control, delivering secure identity services for users, applications, and enterprise cloud environments. Question 26. You need a fully managed, petabyte-scale analytics service for large datasets. Which should you choose? A. Azure Cosmos DB. B. Azure Synapse Analytics. C. Azure SQL Database. D. Azure Databricks. Correct answer B. Azure Synapse Analytics. Explanation. Synapse Analytics unifies data warehousing and big data processing, enabling high-performance analytics, SQL queries, and scalable storage for massive enterprise datasets. Question 27. Which service helps protect applications from distributed denial-of-service attacks? A. Azure Firewall. B. Azure Front Door. C. Azure DDoS Protection. D. Azure Load Balancer. Correct answer C. Azure DDoS Protection. Explanation. Azure DDoS Protection shields applications from large-scale attacks by filtering malicious traffic and ensuring stability through adaptive, intelligent network protection capabilities. Question 28. Which Azure storage option is ideal for storing large-scale analytical datasets in columnar format? A. Azure Files. B. Azure Data Lake Storage. C. Azure Queue Storage. D. Azure Table Storage. Correct answer B. Azure Data Lake Storage. Explanation. Data Lake Storage supports scalable, secure data repositories optimized for analytics workloads, storing structured and unstructured datasets in efficient hierarchical format. Question 29. You need an event-based routing service for reacting to resource changes in Azure. Which service should you use? A. Azure Event Grid. B. Azure Event Hubs. C. Azure Logic Apps. D. Azure Monitor. Correct answer A. Azure Event Grid. Explanation. Event Grid enables lightweight, event-driven routing across Azure services, triggering workflows instantly when resources change, ensuring responsive automation and real-time processing. Question 30. Which Azure service should you use to run background jobs that require parallel processing at scale? A. Azure Functions. B. Azure Batch. C. Azure Logic Apps. D. Azure App Service. Correct answer B. Azure Batch. Explanation. Azure Batch executes large-scale parallel workloads automatically, distributing tasks across compute nodes and ensuring efficient processing for heavy computational batch jobs. Please revise full PDF 2 to 3 times for 100% success. Check the description for the PDF download link and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for upcoming episodes. Thank you.